S-Word, featuring Will Gavin and Master Tess Fassian. And a squad of big-name contributors. The S-Word from talkSPORT.
Hello, this is the S-Word, sponsored by Kalshi. I'm Harry Simeon. I'm delighted to be alongside the world's biggest Three Lions fan, Master Tess Fassian.
Yuck.
And we've got an incredible show coming to you over the next couple of hours. Spain are the second team through to the World Cup semi-finals, setting up a mouth-watering date in Dallas with France next Tuesday. Thanks to the golden boy, Mikel Merino. He's done it again. We'll ask if La Roja can once again win the Euros and the World Cup back-to-back, just as they did 16 years ago. Meanwhile, we'll dissect where Belgium's golden generation went wrong. And of course, we'll look forward to tonight's big one. England take on Norway. Harry Kane takes on Erling Haaland. Could the Three Lions be on the verge of an incredible semi-final with the old enemy, Argentina? Of course, we're going to preview Lionel Messi and co taking on Switzerland too. And as it's Master and I, we're probably going to squeeze in some Arsenal chat as well. Here we go then. You're watching the S-Word, sponsored by Kalshi.
Bring your lunch, bring your dinner.
Master, great to have you with me today. How you doing, my friend? Good to see you. I've been following your travels. You're having a cracking time over in the States.
It's been tremendous. It's been an amazing World Cup. I think I've been to 7 matches to this point. Wow. I was offered to go to Argentina, Switzerland today in Kansas City. But Harry, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the United States, but getting to Kansas City at times can be a bit difficult. There's not too many direct flights, so I wasn't able to swing it. But hopefully something will fall my way for these semifinals, because we already have one tremendous matchup, and hopefully we have another great one depending on the results today.
I've got a feeling that we're going to get another tremendous semi-final as well. I think it's going to go that way. I think you're going to end up with England, Argentina, and we know that that is a game that will provide.
Slow down now.
Listen,
slow down now.
Listen, I got cards on the table, Master. I'm not as invested in England as a lot of the people here at talkSPORT. I'm not. I'm from a different background.
Why is that? Talk to me. Why is that?
Why is that? Because when I was growing up, and you'll empathise with this as an Arsenal fan, it was a team full of Manchester United and Liverpool players. There was no way that I could sit there, in a summer tournament and will on the likes of Wayne Rooney and Steven Gerrard and Rio Ferdinand and Gary Neville. I'm sorry, I just couldn't do it. And a lot of the time I've been criticised for that. And listen, I want England to stay in the tournament and I want them to do well, because the buzz in this country would die if England were to go out of the competition. But I think that when I look at England, I look at it with head rather than heart. And I think when you're in that position, like you are, I think sometimes you can analyse England a little bit more fairly, because you take the emotional element out of it. And for you, I'm assuming that you'd quite like to see the upset tonight.
I would love to see the upset. I would love to see England and Argentina lose today. But does that come at the cost, like you mentioned, of 2 tremendous semifinal matchups? Because the sport is growing in America. We're getting 50 million viewers for USA, Belgium. I mean, the population in England is just under 59 million. So just to put into context in terms of how many people are truly watching the sport right now in the United States. And of course, the bigger the countries, the more appetizing the viewership continues to grow, and the possibilities of a World Cup final that could reach 70 million, potentially 80 million in this country, depending on who the 4 matchups are. So who the 2 teams that advance through. But you'd like to see this momentum continuing, because you want this thing to finish off with a big bang. But also, I'm a hater. And so, and sometimes that logic of the growth of the sport, maybe we've done enough growing for a summer. Yeah. Maybe we could. Erling Haaland has been a great story. The Americans have gotten behind that. I'm sure we'll talk about that more on the show as well. Maybe I'd like to see a nice little. Nothing America loves more than an underdog. So maybe we'd like to see some underdogs in the semis.
Well, listen, hate watching is a big part of the European football culture, so you're definitely in line with that. Look, let's start to break down then some of the action that we've seen over the last 24 hours. We've got our first World Cup semi-final. Spain beat Belgium by 2-1, and here's how it sounded on talkSPORT.
Now Pedro Porro on the overlap, back in field to Dani Olmo, beaten away by Courtois, but fired in by Fabian Ruiz. and Spain have the lead, 1-0. But here's a crossing towards De Catalara, and Charles De Catalara has equalised for Belgium, and hold the back page. Belgium score at this World Cup, and it's Spain who concede for the first time, and it's 1-1. Back to De Bruyne, lovely ball, and Doku pulls it back and then fired towards goal, and it's the side netting. And it was a great chance for Maxime de Kuyper. Now it's square to Pau Kabasi. He strikes it low, Lammers has lost it, and it's hammered in, and yet again it's Mikel Merino. The Arsenal man steps off the bench and has surely won the game for Spain. It's Spain 2, Belgium 1, and Spain yet again have found the big moment. And that's it. Spain are into the semi-final. Mikel Merino, their match winner once again.
Yes, it was Arsenal's Mikel Merino who scored on 88 minutes to dump Belgium out of the World Cup. And Master, I'm interested to get your thoughts on Spain, because whenever I talk to people about their performances, you tend to get kind of a mixed bag of reaction, I think. Some people seem to think, no, actually, what they do is really smart. They suffocate teams. They control possession. It's the Spanish way to kind of really dominate in that sense. And, you know, sometimes you look at the narrow victories that they've managed, and you could argue that, you know, maybe they haven't quite clicked into gear yet. Is that your assessment of this Spanish team? Because I feel like they're getting a bit of a rough ride from some critics. I don't think it's fair to say that they've not been very good. I think they've been efficient above everything else, and I think that's what you need in tournament football.
I don't know, Harry. I think there's more to be had from this Spanish national team. And it's funny you say that, because 16 years ago on this day is when Spain won their first ever World Cup back in 2010. And that was a 1-0 suffering every match, as the tiki-taka style, dominating possession and winning every game, 1-0. But we saw in the Euros a dynamic, electric, on the front foot Spanish national team that really could just take it to you and punish you. And we have yet to really see that in this World Cup. Yes, we've seen that in bits and pieces against Saudi Arabia, and you can even mention the Austria match as well. But in these other matches where, again, when we went through the Euros experience and we saw this dynamic side that could kill you from literally any sort of way possible in a midfield that dominated, I don't think that's necessarily what you can argue or dispute, that this is the same Spanish national team here. And that's why I think people want more, or are expecting more from the side. And I expected more in this match. And the main catalyst, who I was expecting to turn up and have a big game, didn't. I know Lamine Yamal won man of the match, but I think that's an absolute farce. I don't think he should have won that award. I don't think he was deserving of man of the match. Yes, he had some dynamic moments, but there was other times where it felt like the Spanish side was force-feeding him and pretty much telling him to create something. Between him and Dani Olmo, I feel like were the only creative outlets that they had. And at times it felt like they were taking a touch too many due to the simple fact that there just wasn't that level of creativity that we're accustomed to seeing from this side. So, I don't think Pedri had a great game coming off the bench as well. The substitutions they brought on up until Mikel Merino, it was a struggle fest. It really was for Spain. And they duked it out. It got ugly. They found a way to win. Kudos to them. They got to the semifinal, a huge achievement, a huge accomplishment. But I think the criticism is fair. I think there's more to be had from the Spanish side that we haven't seen yet.
See, I don't think the criticism is fair. I respectfully disagree with you here, because I think that what we're overlooking is the direction in which, in particular, European football has gone over the last couple of seasons. And Spain are obviously a side made up of players that play in the top leagues, that, will be tuned in with the trends of European and Premier League football at this moment in time. And we saw Arsenal go and win a Premier League title by being efficient above everything else, by being really strong defensively. Spain conceded their first goal of the tournament last night. So the defensive platform is there. And yes, they've not always been their swashbuckling, brilliant selves at this World Cup, but we've seen so many teams set up really, really well defensively. I feel like if we're sitting there and saying that Spain haven't clicked all the time, I think sometimes we have to give credit to the opposition and the organisation of those teams. I mean, if you think about their opening game, they came up against a low block, right? As low a block as you could possibly imagine. So I don't know. I think that they're doing okay. And I think when you get to this stage of the tournament, having conceded just one goal, I think you deserve credit. I don't think the criticism is fair or legitimate. And I mean, there will be criticism about some of the team selection. De La Fuente obviously has won a European Championship, so he's got that in his back pocket in terms of sort of credentials, and he can show that off. What about Mikel Merino? Should he be starting games for Spain? Is that
I want to stick with that point that you said there, because I think, again, 0-0 against Cape Verde, which we've all gained to grow respect with Cape Verde, but no one expected that result. 4-0 against Saudi Arabia, they clearly dominated that game. That we can push that aside. That's like beating the Faroe Islands in qualifiers, with all due respect to Saudi Arabia. Uruguay, very disappointing, underwhelming team that we saw that quite honestly couldn't score goals. Austria, congratulations on making it to the knockouts. I think this is exactly where this was their last stop. And then a Portugal side that was underwhelming on the attack as well, from a midfield that we expected more from, that we didn't get. A bunch of wingers that unfortunately were all disappointing and underwhelming. And whatever you think of Cristiano Ronaldo, wasn't as effective as he needed to be. And then now you go into this Belgium game, and Harry, Onana got hurt against the USA, tore an ACL. Before the match, Tielemans gets hurt. And during the match, Courtois and Kevin De Bruyne get hurt. And the Spanish side is essentially facing the backup Belgium team.
But Belgium are a good side, Master. They're a good side.
I understand. I'm not dismissing Belgium whatsoever at all. But you would think, especially when you heard the news that Tielemans was not going to play, that this Spanish side was going to finally unlock themselves and become a 3-4 goal affair, as we would expect from the talent that they have. Finally having Lamine Yamal, who can go 90 minutes and looks fit, having Nico Williams coming off the bench. Like, all of the pieces are coming together from all the injuries that we expected that Spain were going to have to deal with. And we all anticipated, we all said before the match that they were going to work themselves through these injuries. And I don't think that's been the case yet. And Luis de la Fuente, some of the substitutions that he made completely threw off the balance that Spain had. If anything, they got bailed out by Mikel Merino. And you would know, as an Arsenal fan, going to Mikel Merino, that he can do this. He can bail you out. And he's done it now back-to-back games. And he's been the first player in World Cup history now to score 2 game-winning goals coming off the bench as a substitute. Again, if you think that is great, by all means, so be it. But for the Spanish side to rely on a substitute as a game-winning goal, of course, it's the World Cup, it's a knockout stage, it's going to happen. But they have that starting 11's too good. We talked about this team being the best roster in this World Cup, and I don't think you can say the performances have lived up to that reality.
I get what you're saying. The problem here is that we're holding Spain to a really, really high standard.
They deserve it. They're the European champions.
Of course they do.
That is the standard in which they have set. Lamine Yamal's talking. He's talking about France in that kind of way. They beat them the last 2 times. They're talking about they should fear them just as much as we fear them. This is Spain, and this is the expectations. You have to live up to these expectations, with all due respect.
Of course they have to live up to the expectations that are there, because, as you say, they've set that bar themselves. But I do find the energy around some teams to be completely different to the energy around some others. Like, with some teams, when they get a result, we look at them and we say, oh, brilliant. They ground out a result. They found a way to get over the line. Argentina the other day against Egypt, everybody was talking about how they found a way. Those that weren't talking about the controversy, I mean, there was no controversy in my opinion, but those that were talking about that game were saying, look at Argentina, they found a way through it. They've managed to grind out a result. When it comes
They're an older team. They're an older team. That has been their identity. That is like that is their style of play at this point.
They're world champions and they're more experienced. You can flip the argument the other way, and that's why I think the noise around Spain is unfair. I really do.
Argentina is a much older team. They are going to grind out these games. They had to grind out against Cape Verde. They had to grind it out against Egypt. And again, unfortunately, it looks like Manzami's not going to be available for Switzerland, but this could be another grind-out affair once again. As the tournament goes on longer, and this is a prolonged tournament, it's a much longer tournament, will these legs at some point give out? Lionel Messi's walking 63% of the time during these World Cup matches. Like, that is their identity. This is not the Spain identity, though. Like, that was the Spain identity of grinding it out. That was the case in 2010. What we saw from the Euros, what we saw from Luis de la Fuente, what we saw from this dynamic team was that they should be playing in the same level of style of play that we're seeing from France. The same joy that we found watching Spain during the Euros. I don't think this has not been. I was at a Spanish watch party here in Los Angeles, and I didn't see a lot of joy in people's faces until Mikel Merino scored the game winner. It was a lot of pins and needles. There was a lot of hype going into it before the match. Everyone expected this to be the breakout game for Spain, to win 3-0. 3-1 was a lot of predictions I was getting from Spanish fans. But at halftime, doing a double check, all they wanted to do was just win, however they could.
I think,
and if that's what it is, then that's what it is. But you're going to go up against a French side that is coming in guns blazing. And yes, defensively, as you mentioned, they've only conceded 1 goal, but they have yet to face a side like France to this point.
Well, they're going to take them on next, so we'll see how they fare in that one. I went to talk about Mikel Merino there, and we kind of digressed onto the debate that we've just been having. But is it time now for Merino to be considered as a starter for Spain? Or do you think he is that super sub impact kind of player and that is his role, therefore embrace it rather than try and change it?
Yeah, I'm always torn on this one because he does things like this and he has performances like this and he comes through in the clutch and you're thinking, man, he absolutely should be a starter. And then he kind of has that Leo Trossard moments where you put him in as a starter and it can be a mixed bag where it could be 60 minutes of not as effectiveness and needing to sub him off. But we've seen time and time again, when he is healthy, he is capable of coming through in the clutch for Arsenal, and he's done the same for Spain. That was the case in the Euros as well when he came through with a game-winning goal in the quarterfinals, and now he's doing it and really Mikel Merino's saving Spain. Like, there's no other way to say this. Because without Mikel Merino, a healthy Mikel Merino right now, I don't know if we would be having the same conversation about Spain to this point, because that Portugal game probably goes to extras, and who knows where the goal comes from. And look, the way Belgium was being, a very pesky side despite all the injuries, who knows where this game goes as well, if not for Mikel Merino, who was the last sub, by the way. The last sub for Spain, and he gets it done in 2-3 minutes when he's on the pitch and finds a way to find the back of the net. It truly is remarkable and incredible what Mikel Merino can do time and time again, coming through in the clutch. And something, again, I don't think Arsenal fans expected when the signing happened, and I don't think Spanish fans saw him doing it for the club and weren't sure if it was going to translate to the national team, and it absolutely has. So kudos to him for finding a way.
I think with Mikel Merino, he's a player that is suited to a very specific game state. And you're seeing him be really impactful late on in games because one of his superpowers is the intelligence with which he moves through the lines. And I think what you end up with late on in a game, when people are tired, when midfielders are just starting to run out of gas, maybe they're not checking over their shoulder quickly enough, maybe they're not reacting quickly enough to the opposition movement, and you invariably see him start in deep positions and then work his way through the lines and end up being the furthest player forward. You see it so often, and if you've got the intelligence around him to pick out that movement and to pick out those passes, we all know what an accomplished finisher he is and how devastating he can be in front of goal. But I think De La Fuente's right not to start him in games because there are parts of Mikel Merino's game that don't necessarily align with Spain's overall philosophy. I don't think he's as mobile as some of their other midfielders. I don't think his pressing is as a high intensity as some of the others as well. So I think for those reasons, I think De La Fuente's right to use him like that. And I think, as Arsenal people, we see a lot of that. We see a lot of Mikel Arteta not using him from the start of games unless he's playing as an auxiliary striker, where his kind of off-the-ball stuff is less impactful on the team, I suppose, in terms of your shape. So, yeah, look, it's an interesting one. He's a great player.
His knack for just being around and having a sense to find the back of the net. Again, I'm not comparing him to this player, but it just eerily reminds me. No one expected that from Jude Bellingham either when he signed with Real Madrid in that first season. He just was able to find the back of the net. Then he was able to translate it to England during that Euros run, and obviously what we're seeing right now as well. Just making those timely runs. A shot that gets deflected off the goalkeeper that spills out and being able to poke it in the back of the net. Like that is an innate. That is effort. That is not giving up on the play, and that is expecting and anticipating something good will come if I make this run. Yeah. And that is an instinct in which Mikel Merino has that he does really, really well. And you brought up a good point. Being able to take advantage of those tired legs is something Mikel Merino, making that extra run, making that extra effort late in matches. We've seen it time and time again, and once again, it's bailed him out. I do want to give a kudos to shout out to Belgium. We haven't had a chance to really talk about them. What an incredible run they had. I know a lot of people are going to talk about the golden generation and it being over, but for them to make it to this quarterfinals, and we expected them to potentially make this run because of the group that they came out of, and we kind of left a bit disappointed. But for them to make it to this point and to push Spain to the limits, let's be honest, and Charles de Catalar, who scored 3 goals in Serie A in 31 matches, and walks away scoring 3 goals in this tournament. Goes from someone that I wasn't too concerned with and is now causing me nightmares as a United States national team fan because of the brace that he scored against us, and coming through once again here for Belgium to tie it going into halftime and keeping it a very nervy, keeping it a very interesting game. Belgium fought to the very last second. Belgium fought with all the injuries they had to deal with everything, the circumstances, Donald Trump coming in and basically making it 12v11 against the United States. Like there is a lot to give praise for Belgium here, where I know the narrative is going to be the golden generation's done with, and all these people may be their last World Cup run, but for a nation of that magnitude and how small it is to be able to compete on this high level, to finish in 3rd place in a World Cup, and even on their last legs in the twilight of this golden generation, to go out in the quarterfinals against the European champions, I don't think it's anything to slouch at. And I think we should give them a lot of praise for the performances they put up in this World Cup and the way that they went out with dignity, fighting to the last second, and something that can give a lasting impression in terms of this golden generation. I think people should honor and recognize.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I would argue the golden generation finished the last tournament. I would say that the golden generation was already done, because the players that were still in that squad that you would have sort of associated with that golden generation, if you like, are now over the hill. I'm sorry, Kevin De Bruyne is not the player he was 3-4 years ago. Romelu Lukaku is not the player he was 3-4 years ago. So I think this golden generation thing, is something that we could have talked about in the past quite a lot when talking about Belgium, but I feel like that moment's passed, and unfortunately this group are going to have to carry that tag for a little bit longer while they have those players still involved within their ranks, and that means that, in my opinion, they'll be judged unfairly. I completely agree with you. I think you're spot on. What they achieved at this tournament was very good, very respectable, and had the draw gone differently and had they faced someone else, maybe we'd be talking about them in the semi-finals of a World Cup as well. We're going to take a short pause. You're watching The S Word, sponsored by Kalshi.
From kickoff to the full-time whistle, talkSPORT presents The S Word. the full-time whistle. Don't say the S word. Say the F word. Football. The S word from talkSPORT.
Welcome back to the S Word, powered by talkSPORT, with myself, Harry Simonsen, in London, and Master Tesfazian is with us live from LA. England are in action against Norway tonight in the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, and it is live on talkSPORT.
Can you hear me? You boys took a hell of a beating.
Are you ready? Do you know? I feel it too.
England have beaten Mexico in the Azteca. They've now got Norway in Miami in the quarterfinals. Bellingham again, and he scored again! It's 2 in a minute!
Are you ready?
2 in the middle now, swept in towards Haaland! Erling Haaland, you beauty!
Score 7 goals for Norway in the World Cup is quite special.
Beware England, beware Erling Haaland. Kane on the turn, oh, what a goal! Unbelievable support!
We will go now full steam ahead to keep pushing and stay in the tournament.
Are you ready? Do you know? I feel it too.
I can't wait for tonight's game. What a cracker we've got in prospect. England taking on Norway. A place in the semi-finals is up for grabs. And I'm delighted to say that joining us now is Henrik Simonsen, Norwegian football journalist, who's over in the States, ready for the big game tonight. What's the atmosphere like, my friend? How's it all going?
Hi, very good, thank you. The atmosphere here in Miami is fantastic. There was a huge Norwegian party here in the streets in the rain and thunder and lightning here last night. So we are really looking forward to this.
Brilliant stuff, brilliant stuff. Look, let's hear from the Norway coach, Ståle Solbakken, and ahead of the game, he spoke to the media and he said that his side are rightfully considered the underdogs.
Are you scared of facing Harry Kane? And secondly, do you think it will be a straight goal-scoring shootout between Erling and Harry Kane?
I think it's Norway versus England, but I don't think it's a secret that Kane is the match winner #1 for England, and Haaland is the match winner #1 for us. Now I would like to see a Norway team that plays up to their strength and that we are ourselves, like we have been the whole tournament. Obviously, when you meet a team like England, who has great players on the wings, Bellingham, Kane, they can score from many positions, great duo in the middle of the park. We need to compete there, we need to defend properly, but the most important thing for me is that we are ourselves with the ball and that we dare to play the game and not the whole environment, and that we concentrate on the pitch and that we can be ourselves and play our playing style. England has more pressure than us, but we also put pressure on our performance. So, and when the game has started, I don't think the players think so much about the pressure. Then it's 11 versus 11. It's much more about the talk beforehand.
Henrik, I love that from Ståle Solbakken. I think he's done the right thing in terms of making sure that everybody knows the pressures on England, but also not discounting his team, talking about how they need to play with personality and play their own game. Is there a little bit more confidence in that Norwegian camp than maybe you expected going into a game like this?
Yes, of course. Seeing what Norway has done in this World Cup has given the team and the whole nation a confidence that we were never close to having before. And it's a bit of a feeling that we have nothing to lose. We have achieved something historical here. We haven't been in the World Cup for 28 years, and now we're through to a quarterfinal. But also we see the opportunity to go further and maybe win the whole thing as well.
Listen, you have galvanized this entire country because, I want you guys to win. I genuinely want Norway to beat England. I need our Arsenal boys to get a rest, and I'm tired of hearing from everyone from the crew in the show about how it's coming home. But I'm trying to go around America. I can't buy a Norway kit to save my life. It is sold out everywhere. The Americans have truly bought on to Norway. Not only that, they've become huge fans. The casuals who don't really watch the sport have all talked to me about Erling Haaland. How much has his profile grown for his personality, the YouTube videos, and obviously the goal scoring in this tournament to becoming, he already was a global superstar, but now it just feels like the commercial availabilities, and I feel like this is not the last that Americans will hear of Erling Haaland.
Yeah, it's been really huge this World Cup. Like we've seen a total new side of Erling Haaland this World Cup. The last year, we've seen him becoming more visible in social media, but it's really exploded here in the US, and the way he has shown himself, the way he's been in the US, going to Manhattan on days off, going around in Kansas. It's been incredible, and we've been so surprised by his whole attitude here. And I talked to his agent Rafaela Pimenta, and she said that she thinks that's why he's also performed so well, that he's been able to relax and take his focus off the World Cup and then go all in and lock in into the games.
We've seen him go golfing. I mean, we've seen him go golfing, as you mentioned. He's been in Times Square. He went to my hometown in Dallas, bought some cowboy boots, and he has truly embraced the cultural aspects of America in a way that I don't know if I expected him to do so, but it's been so refreshing to see.
Yeah, it's been a really shock. He's had maybe the vacation of his life here in the US at the same time that has been blasting the World Cup. So it's been really strange, but very fun to see.
Can I ask you, Henrik, about the Norwegian expectation levels? Because before the tournament, a few people had talked about Norway. They'd looked at Haaland, they looked at Odegaard and various other players in that group, and they said, you know what, this Norwegian side has the potential to be dangerous. But kind of internally, what was the expectation? Because to get to this stage is incredible in itself, but surely having beaten Brazil, those expectation levels have slightly risen, and maybe now there's a feeling that Norway could find themselves in the last four, which would just be incredible, wouldn't it?
Yes, going into the World Cup, it was a bit of a nervousness because there was an expectation to get out of the group and maybe win a game. And if they did that, it would be a success. If they didn't, it would be a huge failure. So it was a bit nervous in the start. And after they beat the Ivory Coast in the round of 16, it's really exploded. And it's been utter madness both there in the US and in Norway, where people have taken to the streets and we had scenes we've never seen before. So that's really done that. Now everyone is happy, but we also see the opportunity to go further. And with players like Haaland, with Odegaard, Antonio Nusa, Sheldrup, everyone sees the opportunity for Norway to do something big, and on their day they can beat anyone. And that is something I believe every 5 million people in Norway think.
Yeah, absolutely. Go on, Master. Go ahead.
Yeah, you've been following this team, as you mentioned, but I'm curious because I've seen all the footages back in Norway from the kids doing the Vikings row in school. Every single product, it feels like, has someone on this Norwegian team plastered all over their faces. What from your vantage point, to see Norwegian football and to see Norwegian pride like this, and again, I know you've been following the team, but to see this from afar in Norway, what has that meant for you, and what does that mean for the country?
For the country, this is huge because I'm 32 years old and I've followed this national team since I was a kid, and I barely remember '98 when we beat Brazil, and it's been miserable ever since, really. We've never managed to do anything, so all we've been good at has been the winter sports, and now suddenly we have a team that can compete in football, and it's a huge national pride. And we thought we'd never have scenes in Oslo like we had in the 90s with national teams, but this has been madness and much, 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 much more. So it's been a national pride that really no one could see coming.
You get the sense that tonight's game, the outcome could be partly decided by that massive battle in midfield between Declan Rice of England and obviously Martin Odegaard of Arsenal. The two of them teammates at club level, but going head to head. And we heard from Martin Odegaard. He was discussing his Gunners teammate Declan Rice in yesterday's press conference. Let's have a listen.
He's someone who always gives absolutely everything for the team, always fighting for every single ball, bringing his energy, to the pitch, to the team, driving the team forward, and he can do so many things on the pitch. He can defend, he can attack, he can be physical, he can be good on the ball. So it's a very complete player. So it's going to be a good test for all of us, and not just about Declan, but the whole team is unbelievable players. So it's a massive test, and we're looking forward to it. And hopefully we can make even more history.
Henrik, what's the opinion on Martin Odegaard's World Cup so far? Because listening to Arsenal fans, myself and Master are very tuned in to the Arsenal space. I think there's been mixed reviews of how he's got on at this World Cup. He was very good against Brazil. There was a couple of other games where he was slightly criticised. What's the kind of Norwegian consensus on how he's performed so far?
He's had a bit of a rough start. In Norway, there was actually a debate in the group stage after the first game that he should not be starting the next game. And actually his teammates and the manager went out in the media and just called that for being not obviously going to happen. So many was concerned. He had many injuries this season, but really from game 2 he's been very good, and what he's done for the national team the last years is mostly been world class every time he's played. And his first half against Brassell wasn't so good, but then he played an amazing second half and was really important for the Norwegian team to win that game. So for the Norwegian offensive game, he's extremely important, and also the defensive work he does. He runs so much, he talks, he's the leader of the team. So to have that debate was a bit of a shock for the manager, Ståle Solbakken. And it was never an option to put him out. And I think it's one of the big reasons Norway are through that Ødegaard has found his form here.
And Master, it works for us, doesn't it? If he finds his rhythm, because it feels like the more he's playing, and he's playing sort of games in close succession at this World Cup, which is something he hasn't been able really to do for Arsenal for quite some time. You feel like he's getting fine-tuned again, back to the point where he can be a real game changer in the Premier League again too.
Hopefully,
yes.
I mean. Go ahead, Henry. That's the hope, I would say. But go ahead, Henry.
Go ahead.
I mean, that's the hope. But again, it's the World Cup, so it's like a completely different stage. And I've been really happy to see the smile on his face, especially post-match as he's banging the drum and doing the Viking row. And that's something that, truth be told, going to Arsenal matches and seeing him getting jeered by the crowd as he's trying to encourage them on, even after mistakes he's made or other players have made. He's always kept that encouraging, positive, optimistic outlook. And I think that's done him some good here, Henrik.
Yes, really. And you saw he didn't have his rhythm in the start of the World Cup, and it's just been better and better. And his link-up play with Haaland is extremely good. They are so dangerous together. And you see now he's dropping deep to get the ball. If Norway struggles, he's the one who helps the team to find the rhythm and the calmness. And so he really found his way.
Henrik Simonsen, thank you so much, mate. Best of luck for tonight.
Pull it off, baby. Come on. Pull it off. Come on. With the whole country of America's behind you. Come on. Pull it off, baby. I'll be at a Norwegian bar watching this match in LA, and I'll be doing my Viking row. Even though I couldn't find a Norwegian kit, unfortunately. I will need to find something else to wear, but I will be there supporting, rooting, and hoping you guys can pull it off and make it to the semis.
Henrik, thank you.
Thank you so much.
The Viking row, I have to say, has been one of the best things of this tournament. I've really enjoyed watching it, and the scenes that has created have been truly incredible. Look, we're going to break, but we've got some breaking news to take into this break, because Jurgen Klopp has agreed to become the next Germany head coach. Yes, he has agreed to take on the role. We're going to discuss it very, very shortly with our European football expert, Andy Brassell. We'll be with him.
Perfect guy to have on with us.
Perfect. It's as if we knew. It's as if we knew. You're watching the S Word, sponsored by Kalshi.
Big name reaction from both sides of the pond. The S Word from talkSPORT. presents the S Word. Get your full-on football fix from across the football galaxy. The S Word from talkSPORT.
Welcome back to the S Word, powered by talkSPORT, with myself, Harry Simonsen, coming to you from London. Master Tesfazian is with us from LA, and we've just had some breaking news.
I'm giddy now. Let's go.
The break. Jurgen Klopp has agreed to become the next Germany head coach. He'll replace Julian Nagelsmann after Germany were knocked out in the round of 32 by Paraguay in a penalty shootout. And honestly, there's no better guest than the man that's about to join us. European football expert, the all-round brilliant Andy Brassell is with us. What about this for timing, Andy? How you doing, first of all?
Come on.
And what a story this is.
Yeah, it is. And you know what? This has been on the cards for some time, going back to before the World Cup. So if we go back to probably about March, April, there's already talk in Germany that even though there's a contract extension for Julian Nagelsmann, that the DFB, the German FA, are talking to Klopp, because they know that he would be interested in it in the medium term. They also know there's a huge possibility of it blowing up at this World Cup. Now, maybe we didn't imagine it would blow up quite as early as it did, and quite the context that it did against Paraguay. But there are already doubts about Nagelsmann, about his ability to sort of lead the group on a human level, really, at that point. And if you're saying that's the question, Klopp is the perfect answer to it. You know, it's not just the fact that he's at this point in his career where he doesn't want to be a club coach anymore, but at the same time seems a bit like stymied by the politics of the job he has at Red Bull, which is quite alien to him in a lot of ways. And he enjoys such unanimous approval in Germany as well. I mean, we said about that contract extension for Nagelsmann. I think we all know, all three of us and everyone listening, that once you get into a major championship and, you know, results go one way, the contract you've got, it almost doesn't matter anymore.
Andy, great having you on to just help discuss this and break this down, because there's a couple thoughts as all of this news was unfolding from a lot of people. What kind of immediate impact can Jurgen Klopp have, and how much of this is a systemic issue that Germany needs to resolve? Because as much as we want to blame Julian Nagelsmann, the quality of the players that they had simply is not what we expect from Germany.
No, I think it's less the quality, more the profile, Master. I guess that's how I'd frame it, because I think if we go through the Germany squad player for player, which we obviously don't have time to do, but you know, I think we all know the headline acts. There's nothing much wrong with their players, but it's an interesting discussion that has been happening in Germany for a number of years now, how there was this hard reset in the way that German players were produced at the start of the century, following a really awful Euro 2000, which was like the tipping point. And the sort of players they produced, and it's a little bit like what English football has done, really. You know, we produce, and Germany produces, more technically good players nowadays. But there's been this sense, especially that things have gone so wrong since the 2014 World Cup, in a World Cup context, that maybe Germany are missing a little something. You know, maybe Germany are missing the sort of hard-nosed players that they used to have. Now, obviously, some of this has been shoveled on Guardiola at Bayern Munich, and obviously he has changed the way that global football has played. But it's almost felt in Germany that maybe he has had too much of an influence. Look, you can't lay it all on him, but there is a sense that, you know, if you think of Euro 96 Germany, World Cup 2002 Germany, which player for player was quite inferior to the team that went to this World Cup 24 years later. But, you know, they got to the final despite the fact they didn't really look much cop. I think that makes a difference. Now, I think Klopp can be more than a Band-Aid. He can be a bag of polyfiller, perhaps, and like some sort of something for sanding as well. I don't know. DIY is not really my thing. I walked into the wrong metaphor there. But look, I think what Klopp can do in terms of creating accountability, in terms of unifying people, and in terms of creating a relationship, Master, between the German general public and their national team again. I think that is absolutely imperative, because that is what has really lacked over the last couple of tournaments, where it seemed like the German general public is actually a little bit disinterested.
Can I ask you though, like, I agree with all the things you're saying about Jurgen Klopp and the strengths that he has, and, you know, all the brilliance that we've seen from him at club level, you know, that's undeniable. But I always wonder how managers whose entire careers have been spent in the club game make that adaptation from club football to national team football. Because if I think about his Liverpool teams, which are the team that I've watched the most of, you know, I know he's done great things in Dortmund and in Germany as well, but it's the Liverpool team that I use as a reference point. I see a team that was super well drilled, that was really well organised, that played with this incredible intensity. Everybody knew their roles, everybody knew their jobs. Trent Alexander-Arnold had a very specific role. Mo Salah had a very specific role, so that you could get the best out of all of those players. But I think to achieve that, you need to have players day in, day out on the training ground. And so my biggest concern when a manager like Klopp, whose football is so detailed, moves over to international management is, right, how do you implement that now, given that you barely have any time with these players? Is that a valid concern, or are you confident that Jurgen Klopp will make that transition and will find a way to be successful on the international stage as well?
It's a more than valid concern, Harry. And I think really the most successful plans at international level tend to be the simplest ones. And I think Klopp will have that into account. I think the riposte to your point really would be Antonio Conte, who did a really good job with Italy, despite the fact, again, he's someone who needs to almost live in the players. You know, he's just so unbelievably intense. But he managed to get that to work at international level with, I think it's fair to say, a not outstanding Italy team that he had at the time. So I think you're looking for a similar sort of thing from Jurgen Klopp. Look, I think it's not as easy when you don't have every day. But look, I think honestly, there's less of a level of tactical rigour required at international level, simply for the reason you talked about. Because, you know, you have to be quite direct. You have to get across quite simple concepts. You know, all the players don't need walking through everything, because for a start, if you come to a World Cup, they're warm already. Well, they're more than warm. They're boiling hot. They've been going for 60 games, haven't they? So I think really it's about R&R and getting simple ideas across. And Klopp has always been quite good at that. You know, he's a really skilled communicator. And also, I don't think he'd really relish going back in and going scorched earth all over again. I think that's why it suits him as well as suits Germany.
Yeah, it feels like he's at a different stage in his career, isn't he? Go ahead, Master.
He looks much happier and healthier from all the footages and videos that we've seen of Jurgen Klopp. And so going back to the point that you made of the previous German reset, are we experiencing another German reset now with Jurgen Klopp, this new Nike contract that we see that's going to pour in a lot of money into the German Federation, and even to a certain extent, Adidas pouring in money into the Bundesliga? It feels like the financial resources, having the right guy that everyone can believe in up top. Is this another German reset, as you said, to help find that profile to reestablish the German football identity?
I think it's a really interesting idea, and I'd like to see how that's going to work. Look, the advantage that Germany has over, say, the English FA is that the German FA will always have, because clubs have such an intrinsic part of the game over there, and fans have such a say as well. I think because there's a bit less money in it, if we're being perfectly honest, the German FA has more power over the clubs because there's such a central part of the game. So, for example, when they did the previous reset, they could just say to the clubs, some of your funding is reliant on the fact that you do this with your academies, that you really make an effort to produce players, and you make sure that they're good developmental places, and that you really invest in your academies. Whereas, I don't know, that's very different, because the clubs have a greater power rather than, you're really talking about cultural importance rather than power in Germany. Like, really what the English FA wants and what suits the clubs are two completely different things in the English context. So I think really, if there's a unified belief on what the direction should be, I mean, it's one thing having the money, it's another thing having the direction. So I think what Jurgen Klopp needs to do now is not just about making Germany good in Euro 2028. I think you're absolutely right, Master. He has to have a say on how German football will develop from here, how it will work at producing the right sort of players. I mean, to briefly take a left turn, in terms of the English context, I think the interesting thing is that the English clubs see the benefit now, but they're not doing it for the good of the national team. They're doing it because really it's a cottage industry for them, isn't it? It's selling players that they produce. And obviously Manchester City and Chelsea have done that very, very successfully over the years as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's change directions a little bit. We were having a bit of a debate earlier on, myself and Master, about Spain, obviously through to the semi-finals of the World Cup, but they have been on the receiving end of some criticism for some of their performances. Where are you on this, Andy? Because my point was that they're playing a brand of football that is in tune with what European football looks like now, at the very highest level. You know, be defensively secure. They suffocate teams by having a lot of possession. Master, I'll let you make your point so that I don't misrepresent.
My point was this is not the same Spain team we saw in the Euros, and I think we expected more from them. And sure, you can have the expectation, as I mentioned, 16 years ago to this day is when Spain won their first World Cup. But that level of suffering is something we're probably seeing equivalent right now. But there's a lot more expectations in terms of them playing a free-flowing style of play that we're seeing from France and that we saw from Spain in the Euros that we've yet to see in the stage, outside of like Saudi Arabia and Austria, with all due respect.
Maybe because I'm a Mikel Arteta fan, I'm okay with the way that they're playing. I don't know. Andy, go ahead. I'll let you have your say.
Yeah, look, they don't owe anyone anything in aesthetic terms, do they? I'm on your side with that, Harry. But look, as well, I think your point about them not playing great opposition so far, Master, is absolutely right. I thought it was really interesting to see Belgium, who I think, you know, achieved over par at this tournament. I think is fair to say.
100%.
Bit back at them quite well. I'm really interested to see what France do. And obviously the quandary that Spain have got going into the France game is, well, have all the possession you like. They don't need it. They've got the players to hit you on the break, and they've got the players to hit you on the break again after they bring some different ones on after 65, 70 minutes. So how Spain deal with that, I think, is really, really interesting. It's going to be a brilliant semi-final. But look, I think when you look at Spain and the way they're approaching things, I think there is a common sense aspect to it as well. I mean, you talked about 2010, and I think that's quite right in that idea of containment as possession as containment, rather than necessarily as incision. I think that's right. And I think that's particularly important to Spain at the moment. Not necessarily because that's a Luis de la Fuente thing, but they've got a few players who are flagging a little bit. And I think you have to manage that realistically. You know, obviously Nico Williams coming back is a plus for them. Last night he looked quite bright, but I'd be really surprised if he was able to start against France. The fact that they rotated Pedri, I wonder if they go in against France with Pedri protected by Gavi, which like often works for Barcelona. You know, you've got the guy to make the tackles, giving the genius room to pass the ball, which I think is probably quite worthwhile because you have those different types of passes, and Pedri can actually open a team up as well. But how they approach it, I think, is really interesting. And given that I think France's weakest spot so far, not to criticise anything that Luca Dean's done in particular, he's done fine, but he's just not at the same level as those other players. And obviously they started with Teo Hernandez and it didn't really work. I mean, it's all ready for Lamine Yamal to really properly have a go at them, isn't it? I mean, it felt like
I thought the Belgium game was going to be that though. I thought the Belgium game was going to be Lamine Yamal's moment. He's finally fit. He's been able to squeeze in 90 minutes, and yes, he had some dynamic moments, but there was other times where it felt like they were force feeding him, and maybe he was doing a bit much as well to live up to the pre-match press conference highlights that he was saying about how he thrives in these bigger moments. But well, you know, he still only had one goal, and that one goal was against Saudi Arabia. With all due respect.
Yeah, I mean, I felt that he kind of ramped it up as the game went along. So there were a few little sighters in the first half, and then there was a bit where he was properly getting his teeth into Belgium. And the way they reacted as well, bringing on Says, who did like unbelievably well. I thought he played Yamal really well after he came on. If you know, obviously there's been a lot of sympathy for Senne Lammens, not in Belgium so much, but in the English speaking community, in the native English speaking community, I thought he was a good example of like how difficult it is to get to the pitch of the game, and Says did that really, really well. So how they deal with that, France, and how they deal with Yamal, I think is really interesting. It does feel, I know to me, I don't know about you guys, that everything that France are doing is just not focused on anyone else, though. It's focused on them. I mean, normally they would play containment. They would play let's defend smartly. And Deschamps has just gone, well, I haven't got those players. You know, those aren't my best players. So let's just leave it with my best players to interpret it as they see fit, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Andy, before we let you go, we've talked a lot about England. We'll continue to talk about England as the show goes on. But Argentina are in action tonight or tomorrow morning, depending on what time zone you're in. Now, who doesn't want to see more Lionel Messi at this World Cup? I can't get on board with anybody that wants to see
Murat Yakin.
Argentina sent home. Yeah, maybe Murat Yakin. Absolutely. But are Switzerland capable, in your opinion, of stopping the Argentina train? Because even when they've looked up against the ropes, down and out, they still seem to find a way. And invariably, the little magicians at the heart of it. Are Switzerland a stern enough test for Argentina to be worried tonight, in your view?
Yeah, I think they are. I think they can make it really difficult for Argentina. And we're always perpetually surprised by the Swiss, aren't we? But actually, you know, they've got a great spinal column. They maybe don't have that superstar striker. I wonder what Switzerland with Mbappe would look like. I mean, it's an interesting thought, isn't it, really? Because they don't have that top quality cutting edge, you know. Maybe in time their midfield becomes that. Maybe Yohan Manzambi becomes that for them. If we're looking maybe a tournament further down the line after he's played a couple of years in the Premier League. But look, I think Switzerland are way tougher and more difficult than people would like to admit. They're definitely better than the last two teams that Argentina have played, and they made heavy weather of that at various points, didn't they? So I think everything's on this for Switzerland to make it like quite tough for them.
It's going to be an interesting game.
The one part that I'm looking at is can Argentina's legs hold up with this prolonged tournament, especially in that Kansas City heat? And with the, as you mentioned, the fitness issues with Manzambi and Ruben Vargas, they contain Colombia very, very well. Is that something they can replicate with those two guys? Obviously, Manzambi not being there and Ruben Vargas being less than ideally fit. Like that just feels like a chess match that I'm just very interested to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I think it will be. I think obviously they won't quite have the power on the break that Egypt had, which really threatened Argentina in that last round. But look, Switzerland are just so good at staying the course. And I think it's a really great opportunity for them. I think people have looked at the way that half of the draw is unfolded and thought, well, Argentina have got a cakewalk to the semi. But they haven't made it look like it, have they? And, you know, everything relies on being able to serve Messi. And that is a lot to ask to do again and again and again, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Andy,
completely agree.
Thank you so much for joining us, mate. It's always a pleasure.
Amazing as always.
I could listen to Andy talk about football all day, honestly. Andy, thank you so much. We're going to take another short pause. You're listening to the S Word, sponsored by Kalshi. And when we come back, we've got another brilliant guest to preview that huge England game coming up tonight.
From the touchline to the terraces, talkSPORT presents the S Word. Gavin and Master Tess Fassian. And a squad of big-name contributors. The S-Word from talkSPORT.
Welcome back to the S-Word, powered by talkSPORT, with myself, Harry Simonsen, and Master Tess Fassian is with me live from LA. But now we're going to look ahead to that huge game coming up this evening. We're less than 8 hours away from England taking on Norway in a World Cup quarter-final.
Harry, your country needs you here. You've got to put this away. Right foot in the air. Oh, bring on the Norwegians in Miami.
That's really a big one. That's an extraordinary night. And we overcame the grind, and now comes quarter-final. Now you see the end of the tunnel.
I think when I was playing for England, we got to the quarter-final. Our game before that was Denmark, and it was a real boring, dour game. Faced Brazil on a little bit of a down, if you like. But them lads with the euphoria around that Mexico game, I think they galvanised really well together.
I think these are obviously the difficult games now. I don't think Norway is a pushover.
We'll go in as favourites. The best teams in this tournament at the moment have got a top striker in them, and Haaland's certainly that for them.
Back to Erling Haaland, left-footed shot! He's picked up the corner! Erling Haaland, you beauty!
I think everyone should stay humble, but yeah, they should be confident of progressing, definitely.
We basically feel we got everything to win, I think the main pressure is on England, so...
Bellingham again, and he slipped into his right-hand side, and he scored again! It's 2 in a minute!
From the quarter-final, every team can win it. We're in the last 8. It's full steam ahead now.
Starting to get excited now. Kick-off not that far away, and delighted to say that the man whose voice you heard in the package, brilliant commentator, talkSPORT's England commentator, the legendary Jim Proudfoot, is with us. Jim, good afternoon, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well indeed. A very good morning to you from Miami, where we had the mother of all storms last night. I cannot tell you how much it rained. I mean, if that had come down during the match itself, it would have been carnage. We would have been swimming for it to get out. We had one bolt of lightning that, if it didn't hit this hotel, it must have been really close, about 1:30 in the morning. But thankfully, although it's not showing Miami Beach at its best today, behind me, as you can see, it's pretty grey, and the sea doesn't look particularly inviting. It's all set up for a monster of a game.
And we talk about the British rain as though it's a bad thing, right? But I guess you've seen another side to it over there. Jim, let's start with how you think England might line up for the game tonight, because there are some decisions for Thomas Tuchel to make, I suppose, and there's obviously a number of players that we know throughout the tournament have been carrying injuries and who are not quite at 100%. What's your gut telling you about how he'll go? I know it's a little bit too early to know for sure, but how do you feel England will approach this?
I think everything hinges around the fitness of Reece James and John Stones, and he'll look at that and decide whether he's got those two at 100%, and then he will have to make decisions accordingly. And I think everything probably cascades down from there. So assuming that Reece James is fit, then I don't think that John Stones will play. I think it will be Concert and Gahey. Clearly, Mark has also got this niggling hamstring problem, so John Stones can come in and replace him. And John's got a decent amount of minutes behind him in that game in Mexico, where he played really well. And so that will be a relief to everybody after his own injury concerns. If Reece James isn't fit, that is difficult. Now, there is a train of thought that it would be Jed Spence would play at right back, and that it would still be Ezri Konsa at centre-half. I wonder whether it could be Konsa at right back and that Gahey would partner Stones or maybe Dan Burn at centre-half. The other question is Declan Rice. What do you do with Dec? Bearing in mind that he's been laid low by a bug this week. He has had this long-standing neural problem, which has affected his lower back and his hamstring, and he's on a yellow card. So he can't miss time a challenge, because if England were to beat Norway today, then they would be suspended for the semi-final if he were cautioned today. And it's the fact that he's got that yellow card hanging over him that makes me think that maybe they will be a little bit more cautious than they would have been. So I'm not saying that he won't start, but I think that there is a decision to be made there over Declan Rice. And if he doesn't play, then I would imagine it'd be Morgan Rogers will come into a slightly rebalanced midfield alongside Jude, ahead of Elliot Anderson. Everything else, I think, picks itself.
Very interesting. Very interesting. It's you talked about Dan Burn, and I know there's been a lot of calls for Dan Burn for him to start, especially when you think about the physicality where Erling Haaland is. That an outside chance based off the scenarios that you're playing out? Is that a possibility? Do you think that's a good idea going into this match?
It's a possibility. I think it's probably unlikely, but it is a possibility. But you see, the one advantage that I think Dan Burn has is that he hasn't trained with Erling Haaland week in, week out. Now, that might sound counterintuitive. I think that if you're Haaland and you've trained alongside John Stones for 3 years and Mark Gahey every week for the last 5 months, you get to learn what a defender can't do, and you can play on their weaknesses. And I think that familiarity probably comes down more in favour of Haaland than it does in terms of the two England defenders. So if you're playing against Dan Burn, it might be slightly harder for Erling Haaland from that point of view. I mean, I appreciate that the other point of view, that the defenders know Haaland's tricks and they know his game, but I just got a feeling that familiarity isn't necessarily positive for England. So I think it's on that basis that if Dan Burn were to be selected today, notwithstanding the injury problems elsewhere that might force Thomas Tuchel's hand, then I think that would be the thinking behind it.
I think Haaland's such a difficult one because we've seen him just literally cruise through a game, barely have any involvement, and then just burst into life. And I'm not saying that defenders don't concentrate for the entirety of 90 minutes, but he almost kind of lures you into this false sense of security. You might think you've got a lid on him. You might think you've got him under control. I mean, you go back to that Brazil game, the cross that came in, Gabriel up until that point had handled him pretty well. And then there's one sharp bit of movement. He gets in front of you and there's nothing you can do about him breaking the deadlock. So I think Haaland, is just such a difficult player to keep a lid on it. And Jim, in terms of Norway overall, have you been surprised by them at this tournament? Is this about what you expected from them? Because they've got some great names on paper, but obviously it's been a long time since they've been at a World Cup, let alone competitive at one.
To your first point first, I think that Haaland, Harry, it's even more prevalent for Norway than it is for Manchester City, that he goes through games feigning indifference and then all of a sudden good opportunities come his way. And the stats would tell you that the standard of opportunities that Norway create for him are actually better than those that Manchester City create for him. If you look at XG and the average XG per shot, etc., and sort of really bear down into the deep nuts and bolts of it statistically. So that is a little bit frightening. I mean, he has scored in his last 14 competitive internationals. Nevertheless, I am still surprised they've got as far as they have. I thought that a round of 16 defeat would be what they could expect. I thought that they would give France a tough game in the group. Obviously, that didn't pan out because they'd already got the job done, and so they made a decision to rest 10 players. So I don't think you can read anything into that 4-1 defeat to France, except for the fact that probably they haven't got a lot of strength in depth, which England, injuries notwithstanding, certainly have. To beat Brazil, I didn't see that coming. I thought they had a puncher's chance, but no more than that. They had the best forward on the pitch for that game. The best number 9 on the pitch, should I say, because I think Haaland against finishers is a different debate. But they had the best number 9 on the pitch for that game, and had Haaland been playing up front instead of Hendrik in the second half, it would have been a different story. What I've been most surprised at is that Ståle Solbakken has moved away from the archetypal Scandinavian model, and that they have so much more possession now than they have ever had before. And that was really prevalent in the Brazilian game, because if you told me even 18 months ago that there'd be a match in the World Cup between Brazil and Norway where Norway would have the majority of possession, I'd have laughed at you. Just would have thought that was completely absurd. That's how it came to pass. They managed the ball really carefully. Ødegaard is fantastic. He's integral for that. And they will have long periods of possession. And it is possession for possession's sake, but it's management of the game. It's wearing the opposition out. It's having a rest themselves. And that is what they've been able to do. That has been really impressive, as well as being able to feed Erling Haaland.
So are we expecting a counter-attacking style from England then, considering what you're saying and the idea that potentially Norway could have more possession than England in this match?
I don't think that they will necessarily go quite as much with it, Master, in this particular game, because they know that counter-attacking football is what England want. For all that they have, all this talent at the front end of the pitch, England's best performances are in games where they have less of the ball against better opposition. We've seen that in the two big wins that they've had in this tournament have both fallen that way, where they've had less of the ball than you might expect and have been able to hit on the counter at times, certainly in transition. So I don't think Norway will fall into those hands. I do think that they will have a lot of the ball, but they will sit with it quite deep. So I don't think that they're going to allow England those counter-attacking opportunities, because Norway's possession isn't to try and hurt England at the front end of the pitch. It is almost bore the pants off everybody and just sling it around the back and try and manage the game that way. So I don't necessarily think they'll be naive enough to fall into the traps that England will want them to set by having all this possession.
Jim, what about Thomas Tuchel? Because he's obviously a manager of incredible sort of pedigree. He's come into the England job. There was a debate when he first took the job around whether or not, you want a German coach managing England. We've heard that debate over and over and over again. Nobody ever doubted his credentials, but that debate was certainly there. It feels to me, looking from the outside in, that he's kind of ingrained himself in the culture really, really well. Have you been surprised by how positive a relationship he seems to have with the group? We're seeing pranks, we're seeing all sorts going on in the camp. It gives you a good sense of how well he's managed those relationships so far.
I think he's a fantastic manager. He's not with the benefit of hindsight. I was all for his appointment. I want England to win the World Cup. I want England to be successful. There is the smallest part of me that would rather that happen with an English manager than a foreign manager. But that is only because I think that international football should be purely international, and that it should have the same qualification process for staff as it has for players. But listen, above all, the rules are as they are. It doesn't bother me who the England manager is. I want the best England manager. I think Thomas Tuchel is absolutely fantastic. Even if England were to go out today, I think that they've done well. Now, today's the tipping point. I think in public opinion that if England were to get through this, they will be regarded as having had a successful World Cup. If England lose a quarter-final to Norway, they will be regarded as having had an unsuccessful World Cup. I think that Thomas Tuchel has done a good job and that the omens are bright going forward. He loves England. He loves English culture. He's talked about that a number of times. I think he's a really good fit for this set of players. There's clearly a huge amount of respect that he holds in the dressing room. They adore him. They think he's fantastic. They believe in him. That's the most important thing. He doesn't sing the national anthem. Couldn't care less. I really, really couldn't care less. He's German. I couldn't care less. As I say, there's such a small part of me thinks that I would rather England won the World Cup with an English manager, but I would much, much, much infinitely rather England won the World Cup with Thomas Tuchel in charge than they didn't win it at all.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Has Ed Sheeran come by and serenaded you with his lovely tunes yet?
Is that it? Do you know what? I had to bang on the wall in the middle of the night. It was so loud. Oh man! Ed, I thought he could hold a tune.
How have you been enjoying it? You've been in so many different cities. Miami now. We've talked to you in Dallas and Boston. You've been in Mexico City. Rank your cities. Which ones have been your favorites? And it seems like you've dealt with some crazy weather in every single city to deal with. It's drastic cities with different cultures and different weathers.
God, no pressure. It's like asking me to name my favourite child. And all four, I hope, would think it was them, by the way. Which city do I like best? I love Texas because I didn't know what to expect. And I'm not just saying that because I'm speaking to you. I've never been to Texas before, and we've had this conversation. And the hospitality there was on a different level. I like Florida. I loved Orlando. We stayed in Orlando for a few days before the tournament even started because of the warm-up games, and that was idyllic. New York, I'm very fortunate that I know a little bit more, and it's always good to go back there. We stayed in Providence in Rhode Island where we were covering the games at Foxborough. We did that rather than Boston, and that was, say, quaint. It sounds condescending, but I live in Salisbury, which is the archetypal quaint English city, so it was right up my street. Everywhere we've been, we've enjoyed. Mexico City was very different. Don't get me wrong. For me personally, 2 days was enough. I feel immensely privileged that I got the opportunity to go there and to see it and to see that game, but also to experience their culture for a small amount of time. So that was fantastic. And I appreciate that is a long-winded answer. That is me completely sitting on the fence. But there's nowhere I haven't liked. It's been great. You know, I love American culture. I love your sport. I love everything about the place. It's been great.
Jim,
you have hit up so many amazing cities. I would say I'm envious, but I've also been traveling around as well. But to have those different cities and locations to cover England, it is a great road trip and a great journey.
Jim, before I let you go, I've got to squeeze this one in, right? Big game coming up tonight between Argentina and Switzerland. Would you rather, as an England fan, have that quote-unquote easier tie against Switzerland should England make it through, or would you rather that blockbuster game against Argentina in a potential semi-final? Which one would you prefer?
Are you kidding me, Harry? Are you kidding me? I want to play Switzerland. It's on every level. On every level. I must say, having been fortunate to see Argentina in the flesh in the game against Cape Verde here in Miami, a week yesterday, they don't hold as much fear for me as they would have done before a ball was kicked in the tournament. And obviously they've scraped through another game since then with that remarkable game against Egypt. But Argentina are a better side than Switzerland. All that matters is your name getting engraved on the trophy. There's no asterisk. Oh, they only played Norway and Switzerland on the way. That's not how it works. I want to play the easiest game, and my perception is that Switzerland would be an easier game than Argentina. So I would rather England play the Swiss. But having said that, I don't fear Argentina either. Listen, fellas, there's a game to get through first.
Yeah,
this one is.
You got to be Norway.
The formality. I don't think that everyone thinks it is today.
No, of course, but you can't help but look ahead in these tournaments with the brackets, and you can see.
I don't know. You can't help it. You can't help it.
We had the same in the.
You start looking ahead, and you're going home.
No, we had the.
You start looking ahead. You start looking ahead, and all of a sudden you're looking at flights home.
No, we had this thing in the Champions League last season with Arsenal as well. We were looking at that side of the draw, and we were mapping out our route. That's just what the football fan in us will do. It's inevitable. Jim, thank you very much, mate. Really, really appreciate your time. And
have a great call tonight.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's always great to speak to the pair of you. Harry, lovely to see you. Master, we'll catch up soon. Take care.
All the best, mate.
Sounds good, buddy.
Brilliant Jim Proudfoot, talkSPORT's England commentator. Remember, of course,
jumping ahead, Harry. You get too antsy about the semi-final.
Listen, I think Norway have got a chance tonight. I really, really do. But the prospect of that England-Argentina game, that is a World Cup blockbuster fixture. That is the kind of fixture that you will remember in 30, 40 years' time. The England potentially against Switzerland game, you'd only remember that if England went on to win the World Cup. If they don't, then that's a fixture that just disappears from the memory. But anyway, look, we got a break. We'll be back, and we got more football chat coming your way. You're watching The S Word, sponsored by Cauchy.
The S Word with Will Gavin and Master Tesfacion from talkSPORT. talkSPORT presents the S Word. High energy exchanges, fiery fan reactions, and the biggest football debate. The S Word from talkSPORT.
Welcome back to the S Word, powered by talkSPORT with me, Harry Simonsen, coming to you live from London. Master Tesfazion is on the other side of the pond. He's in LA, and we've got
great show so far, Harry.
Yeah, it's been good fun.
Even though you're guaranteed an England victory over Norway, and you're looking ahead to the semifinal. The confidence is oozing out of you.
Listen, I'm a man that likes to put my predictions out there, put my neck on the line, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll hold up my hands. But I think England are going to make the World Cup final. I'm not going to go as far as to say they're going to win it, but I think they're going to make the World Cup final. I really do.
Now, explain why. Explain. You've got Norway to look ahead to, and potentially Argentina, Switzerland, and you're already mapping yourself out to going to New York, New Jersey to finish this thing off, to face the winner of France, Spain. Explain, state your case.
At the risk of being clipped up and humiliated on social media over the next 48 hours, I'm going to say that Norway, outside of two players, are not that good. They're not that strong. I've watched them at times in this tournament, and I was very impressed against Brazil, but in other games, I've been really disappointed in them, actually. So I don't think they're as good as England. I don't think they've got the depth that England have. At best, if they take it to extra time, I think England have got the players on the bench to be able to come on and change the game, and I just don't think Norway have that. And Argentina, at the moment, as much as I adore Lionel Messi, he's literally carrying them on his back at 39 years of age, and I don't know if that's sustainable for another round beyond tonight as well, of course, because they've got Switzerland. So I think it's working out quite nicely for England, actually, and I think that matters in tournament football. You need a bit of luck, you need the rub of the green, and I think in terms of the pathway, it might work for England. The fact that they're not on the side that Spain and France are in, I think is huge in terms of their prospects of reaching the final. Whether they'll go on and win it or not, I don't know. England crumbling in a big moment, we've all seen it many, many times before, so you can't rule that out. But on the theme,
it could happen today. It could happen today, Harry. It could happen today.
It could. We'll see. I do want to talk a little bit. We didn't get a chance to discuss this earlier on in the show, but I do want to talk about Sene Lammens. We spent a lot of time talking about Spain, but Sene Lammens made quite a big error in the game last night for Belgium. Andy Brassell sort of joked that obviously it's not gone down particularly well in Belgium. There's a part of me that feels for him, actually, because I think when you come off the bench cold in a game like that, it's very, very difficult to acclimatise to the game. And so a handling error like that, it can happen. And I think it's really unfortunate for him. But it has got me thinking about, you lose Courtois, Lammens comes in, good Premier League goalkeeper, but it's got me thinking about who the best goalkeepers are at this tournament. And has the tournament given you any indication with regards to now who you think the best goalkeepers in world football are? Because talking to producer Jack earlier, if you asked me this question 10 years ago, I could have reeled off a list of 10 goalkeepers. I can't do that now. I can't get beyond 3 or 4. So
what about your boy Unai Simon? You've been talking about Spain only conceding 1 goal. He's been doing well. If you want to praise defensively how they've been doing, I mean, I feel like that would be someone that's top of your list.
He's not even. He's not even in the best goalkeeper in the Spanish squad. He's not even the best in the Spanish squad.
There it is.
He's not. He's got a relationship with De La Fuente. They've come through the levels together. And I think that's why he picks him out of loyalty. I don't think he's better than Joan Garcia, and I certainly don't think he's better than David Raya. But even outside of Spain, like, is Courtois still up there? Is Emi Martinez in there?
Absolutely. Some of the saves Courtois made on Lamine Yamal in that match yesterday, he absolutely is still considered one of the best and arguably the best in the world, without question.
So
I think Courtois
who's the best for
absolutely deserves to be on the... In terms of this tournament, or just in terms of in the world? Because obviously, as you mentioned, it's hard not to argue that without David Raya, but he's not playing.
Yeah.
So, and some of these situations that you have, where some of these nations, like Belgium, Spain, for instance, some of these countries are just absolutely stacked with goalkeepers, where it's 3 deep, and you're having 3 guys that you can arguably consider world class. But I think this has been a great World Cup for goalkeepers, truth be told. Vozinha, we saw having a tremendous performance. Shobir with Al-Ali in Egypt, he's been sensational. And Passi with the DR Congo, I thought he's been tremendous, not only just in the England game, but I think he had 8 saves against Colombia as well. I think he had an amazing World Cup. It may not be the names that you're accustomed to seeing, but I think we saw, globally speaking, a lot of countries displaying their abilities to have some really, really impressive goalkeepers based off their own domestic clubs that they play potentially within their own nation, and taking full center stage. The Iran goalkeeper, he had some impressive performances as well. So I understand maybe the bigger names as you're accustomed to seeing, like the Alissons, probably from Brazil is one of those. I think, what is it, Kobel? I think it is with the Switzerland. I thought he's had some decent performances as well. I look at this. Jordan Pickford, give or take, the goal he conceded against DR Congo wasn't exactly his greatest moment. I think he's been decent. I don't. Maybe he hasn't been one of the greatest, and I don't know if I'd consider him in the top 3 goalkeepers or top 5 goalkeepers. Hasn't really had that kind of performance yet, but I still think he's a quality goalkeeper. Martinez stepping up as well. I think he's still been quality. Yeah, I think this has been a really, really good World Cup for goalkeepers. Just from the names in which you're accustomed to, but more importantly, the names that maybe most people do not know because they don't play in Europe that have excelled and done really well this year or this summer.
I think though this is a conversation that needs to be separated. Like, best goalkeepers at the World Cup, in terms of the performances that they've put in during this tournament, is one thing. Best goalkeepers in the world is another thing. Because a lot of those goalkeepers that you've mentioned, and rightly so, because they've had really good tournaments, I don't think are at the level that they would be playing in one of the top leagues in the world week in, week out, without maybe being a little bit exposed. So I think that the World Cup conversation has to be kept separate from who are the best goalkeepers in the world, in my opinion. I think you can use it to help form your judgment and shape your opinion, but I don't think it is defining, because, as you said, Pickford, when he plays for England, is brilliant. When I watch him in the Premier League, I'm not saying he's bad, but I certainly don't regard him as one of the elite.
Oh, you don't?
No, I don't. No, I don't.
Outside of David Raya, I don't know who would be a better goalkeeper in the Premier League to take than Jordan Pickford. I think he's. I would argue
he's the best English goalkeeper. I don't think he's the best goalkeeper in the Premier League.
Outside of David Raya, who would you take in the Premier League at this point? Because I think you'd be hard pressed to find a better name than Jordan Pickford. I really do.
Is Alisson not still better?
I mean, considering all the injuries he dealt with this past season, is
Martinez
availability. You could throw him in there. I think it's a possibility, but I don't know if he's been better than Jordan Pickford. I don't. Especially when you consider, I don't know, I wouldn't put Donnarumma ahead of Jordan.
Really, that's mad to me.
The amount of mistakes that we saw, Donnarumma. Don't get me wrong, obviously what he's accomplished, but he's good for a gaff or two. Let's be honest here. And in some of those situations, it cost City going down the stretch in the run-in with some of the mistakes that he was prone to make. And with Jordan Pickford, defensively, as we're speaking with Everton, they had so many injuries in their back line. And Jordan Pickford was the anchor that kept that thing going. And yes, I know Everton didn't make it in European qualifications or competitions, but defensively, there was a good period there where they were very stout and very difficult to deal with, and Pickford played a big role in that. I completely disagree. I think Jordan Pickford, based off what we saw last season, if that's the qualifications, I thought he was the second best goalkeeper in the league. I mean, you could put who's our guy at Sunderland there? I think he had a really quality season as well. Henderson, I thought had a good season as well. But yeah, I think Pickford's name, I think it should be absolutely up there.
I think he's probably in the top 5 Premier League goalkeepers, but I wouldn't put him I can't with any degree of certainty say he's any higher than that. Look, Everton done us a favour against Manchester City, right?
Rolfs is the one I was thinking of at Sunderland. Yeah. Rolfs, I thought he had a really, really good season with Sunderland this year. But I wouldn't take him over Pickford. I wouldn't take Henderson over Pickford. I wouldn't take Donnarumma over Pickford. I don't think I'd take Emi Martinez over Pickford.
I think, Master, though, it depends on what you want from your goalkeeper as well. Because, for example, right, you look at Donnarumma, and I don't think there's a better shot stopper than Donnarumma. When he's on tip-top form, we've seen it, up against Arsenal, we've seen it many times. Unbelievable saves, down to his left, down to his right, gets down low so quickly for such a big man. He's incredible. But then if you ask him to get the ball at his feet and distribute, he can't do that like some of the other goalkeepers. And I think the goalkeeper that suits your team is going to be different depending on how you want to play. If you want to play out from the back, and I know that is a more common thing now in modern football, then you need a goalkeeper that can do a little bit of all of those things. But I think some of them have different strengths, and it's very difficult to compare. And that's why I don't mind coming up with a top 5. I find it very hard to say this person is definitively number one, that person's definitively number two. But it's a really, really interesting chat. Look, the Premier League is just, 6 weeks away now. And
don't remind me, man. I need some time off,
bro. The grind will continue, my friend.
I need some time off. I'm very much, look, as sad as I am to see this World Cup coming to an end, my mind is, I need a break. I'm looking forward to whatever week or two break, if I even get that. Because as you just mentioned, the Premier League starts in 6 weeks, and I'm sure there's some of the projects that I have to work on right now that I need to gear up for that. But it was brought up to me yesterday. I forgot who. I was on the phone with a friend of mine who's also in the industry, and he got his August schedule for what he's supposed to do, and he's like, yeah, bro, the Premier League starts next month. And I'm like, what? Like, I think Arsenal's first preseason match is, next week? This is absolutely
very,
insane.
Very soon, aren't they? Very, very soon. It's crazy. There is no turnaround time, really. But I mentioned the Premier League is 6 weeks away because obviously there's a lot of talk about transfers. The only transfer that Arsenal have completed was the signing of a goalkeeper, Illan Meslier, former Leeds United goalkeeper. And that's got me thinking about the bigger picture in terms of transfers. Are you at all, from an Arsenal perspective, nervous about this summer's window? Because, just gauging what people are saying online, there is a little bit of agitation, a little bit of frustration about the lack of real meaningful business so far. Do you just think that with the World Cup going on and all the chaos that ensues around it, that we've just got to just be a little bit patient here? But then again, you say it's around the corner.
It is around the corner. I mean, but how different is this from what Andrea Berta did last year? When the initial window opened up prior to the Club World Cup, Arsenal was not active. They were in a bunch of conversations with a bunch of players, and they didn't make their first move. And it wasn't until the Gyökeres signing, which happened around this time, if I can recall correctly, leading up to their summer tour in Asia, when Gyökeres was signed. So I'm not the biggest fan in the way that Andrea Berta approaches the summer transfer window, if I'm being quite honest with you. I think a club like Arsenal, especially when you're spending as much as you are, as they did last year, where they spent, £250 million, that you should be on the ball with who are your top targets, who you feel like should make your team better, and go pursue them. And we're seeing, the big clubs doing that once again, whether that's Elliot Anderson obviously making the move, Manchester United making moves with Santos. We're seeing the clubs who are very diligent in terms of who their top targets are and making those moves, where Arsenal kind of, again, is playing that musical chairs game where some guys may be a bit more overpriced than they want to pay, and they're kind of going to cheaper options. And yeah, you could do that last year, and it got you a Premier League title with the depth that you were able to build out. But I think right now it's all about top end quality, and where they're able to find that or how they're able to get that, I'm not exactly too sure. But the one thing I would press against, and that was the argument I made last year, is either you move very early in the window and you target exactly who you want, or you just stay patient and wait late. This purgatory space in the middle where you're kind of pressed up against the pressure which Arsenal faced last year for not making a big signing, and the stink and the noise last year was much, much louder, which I think ultimately led to the signing to Victor Gyökeres. And say what you want about that signing, if they would have waited, maybe an Isak would have been available, or maybe you wait out to see the Seško situation. But I think staying patient, waiting it out makes the most sense. But I would have liked to have seen some of the people that they have targeted to this point a little bit more further in the conversations.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I do think that the noise is less this time around, as you've rightly highlighted. But that comes from the fact that Arsenal did it last season. They went and won the Premier League, and there is generally a much more relaxed feel about where the squad is at. However, if you want to consolidate that position, if you want to strengthen your position and potentially, spark a chain of events that leads to a little bit of a mini dynasty, if you like, then you almost have to be, on the ball and ready to go. I think Arsenal will get the players that they want. I think, they're having to be patient because of the World Cup in some parts. They're having to drive hard bargains with some of the clubs that are potentially selling. Because I look at what Tottenham have done. And I don't agree with the fees that they've paid, not even close to, to land the players that they have so far. I think Manchester City have paid a crazy amount of money for Elliot Anderson. And so I don't look at anybody else's business with any envy at this stage. And for that reason, I'm able to stay that little bit calmer. Look, we're going to break in a minute, but
who do you want? Who do you want? That's the thing. We're looking at a season where Declan Rice, William Saliba, and Bukayo Saka more than likely are not going to be available for the start of the season. I understand the patience and the good thrills and the joy of the title last year, but that was last year. And I'm sorry, in order to stay on top, you're going to have to be aggressive, and you cannot rest on your laurels and expect, if you run this back with the same roster, that you're going to be able to win it again. I do not like the complacency that I'm sensing right now from the fan base due to the simple fact that, the goal was not just to win one, it's to win multiple. And it is to absolutely dominate this league for years to come and throughout the rest of this decade. And if that's not the mindset and mentality people have, I'm sorry, I just do not completely agree with that.
Get me Bruno Guimaraes, get me Morgan Rogers, and I'll be happy with that. And anything that we can add in and around that, Solis, the Greek winger from Club Brugge.
Go get Vinny, baby.
Well.
Go get Vinny.
I just don't see that as being realistic. Look,
go get Vinny.
Before we break, Master, I've got to ask you this question, right? Because it's been on my mind since we had that goalkeeping conversation. None of the goalkeepers that we touched on or talked about are even close to my greatest goalkeeper of all time. If I put you on the spot now and say, who is the greatest goalkeeper of all time? Where does your head go? Where does your mind go?
Man.
It's a tough one, isn't it? I'll give you mine while you think. I'm going to go Gianluigi Buffon. I can't see beyond him.
It's a great choice.
Unbelievable goalkeeper.
Great choice. It's tough. I mean, Germany's had so many great options, so my mind typically goes to Germany. But Buffon is an absolutely fantastic choice. I think you can't go wrong with Buffon, and he has been frustrating I'm sure, for English fans and England fans, to say the least, with his performances. But I think you can't go wrong with Buffon. I think that's an excellent choice.
Yeah, I think we've got to go with people that we remember and watch play as well. I certainly feel that that's important in those debates, in those discussions. You can go by the myth of someone of the past, but having seen Buffon throughout the most part of his career, I thought he was fantastic and certainly worthy of that title. And let's be honest, there's not a goalkeeper in the world right now that is close to him, I'm sorry to say. You are listening to the S Word, sponsored by Cauchy.
Bringing all the biggest football debates stateside. The S Word from talkSPORT. talkSPORT presents The S Word. Listen again and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and on the talkSPORT USA YouTube channel.
Welcome back to the S Word, powered by talkSPORT, with myself, Harry Simonsen, and Master Tez Fatsi. And what a show it's been. And we've still got a little bit of football chat to come your way. And we're going to talk Argentina, because you can catch, of course, what could be Lionel Messi's last ever World Cup match as an Argentina player. They take on Switzerland tonight. And, of course, it is live on talkSPORT.
Basically, he's inspired. I mean, you cannot play against them. They are so good.
He's in a different level, even at 39.
And Enzo Fernandez! Oh, yes! Argentina have done it in stoppage time!
Unbelievable. We have just witnessed one of the greatest World Cup comebacks.
One of the greatest in the history of the greatest competition there is. And the greatest sport there is.
Team who never really get talked about as, winning a competition, but they're always there. Switzerland.
Couple of steps to his left. Forward he comes, into the bottom corner, and Vargas does it. And Switzerland roll on to their first World Cup quarter-final in 72 years.
A potential banana skin of a tie for Argentina tonight, but Lionel Messi, the greatest ever to do it. He's made Cristiano Ronaldo look terrible at this World Cup. He continues to deliver game after game after game. Even when he missed a penalty in their last fixture against Egypt, he was able to turn it on and turn it around for the Argentinians as they book their place in the quarter-final. Master, I think we all agree that Switzerland will provide a stern test for Argentina, but it does feel, when you watch them, almost as if it's written for Lionel Messi to go all the way again. His performances have been unreal. I know you was quite upset with some of the decisions that Argentina got in the Egypt game. I'm sorry, I haven't had a chance to speak to you. You're completely wrong on that, by the way.
Another
both
Messi fan
decisions were
telling me
correct.
that every decision was correct.
They
Surprise,
were correct.
surprise.
They absolutely were correct.
Surprise.
They absolutely
As someone
were
just
correct.
glowingly talks about Messi, I feel like I'm talking to Will Gavin right now with how much you just glowed about Messi and felt like every single call was the correct decision made against Argentina. That's you know what? It's fine. We've moved on now. We're on to Switzerland. And
I'm Will Gavin, and it's all me.
How do you see this game going, Master? Because look, Argentina, it's fair to say, like we wax lyrical about Lionel Messi and the magic he's produced, but they have struggled, in the last couple of rounds. It has gone down to the wire. It has been difficult for them in terms of getting through against teams that they were really fancied against, by the way. Do you think that Switzerland could be one step too far for this Argentinian side, or do you expect them to book their place in that potential, I've got to say potential, so I'm not getting ahead of myself, semi-final?
Nah, go ahead. You already are. You got ahead with England. Go ahead. Just say it. Argentina's going to win.
Set it up with England. There you go. Is that going to happen?
There you go. Don't need to hide it. We could tell. The objectivity doesn't exist after you just glowingly spoke about Messi for 2 minutes on the show. I'm very curious about this one, because honestly, I did not expect Switzerland to put up the performance they did against Colombia. I thought Colombia, for their performances that they had in this World Cup, it's a shame that they were eliminated due to, I thought they played a really beautiful style of play. Defensively, I thought they were rock solid. They just could not find the back of the net. And Switzerland, kudos to them, made it very difficult for them over 120 minutes and into penalties, and showed the fortitude. And all the credit goes to Granit Xhaka and what Switzerland's been able to do. This guy, we thought when he left Arsenal that, best of luck to him. All he does is, go unbeaten in the Bundesliga, win that, win another domestic trophy, take Bayer Leverkusen to the Europa League final, and then obviously what he's done with Sunderland is now a recently promoted side and getting them into the top half of the Premier League. It truly is remarkable, and continuing that on to his national team now and having Switzerland on the doorsteps of a semifinal. I would not underestimate this Switzerland side. My only concern is, again, not having Manzambi, who I think has been the best young player in this tournament. Not having him fit and available, even though he wasn't fit and available against Colombia, they still found a way. And Ruben Vargas as well, who was not in the starting 11, but made his way as a substitution because of fitness issues that he's had. And again, Switzerland has found a way. So, we keep giving credit to Argentina for being able to find a way, and absolutely deservingly so. But I think the same mentality has to be presented and acknowledged in terms of Switzerland and what they've been able to do to get to the quarterfinals.
Yeah, I think the Swiss are a really stubborn side. They're really well drilled. They do have a good standard of players throughout the squad and in all departments. I just think with them, the thing that they're missing, which means that they never really truly sort of threaten in terms of going on to win these competitions, is for me they don't have enough of that star quality. Whereas somebody like Argentina, your England's with Harry Kane and all the rest of it. Spain have got, untold amounts of players that can do it. The French, Mbappe, Dembele, Olise, for example. They've got those match winners, match deciders. And I don't know that Switzerland have got enough of those players to be a real threat in terms of, going all the way. Because it almost feels, given what they've done in recent tournaments and how stubborn they've been and the fact that they always get to a really respectable stage, it feels almost disrespectful to say they can't win it, but I legitimately don't think they can for those reasons that I've just explained. I don't want this.
Do you think Argentina has the legs, though? Do you think Argentina has the legs? Like that's the biggest question to this point, because I saw a stat, I think it was from The Athletic, where and we know Lionel Messi walks around most of the matches anyway, but walked around 63% of the matches in the World Cup. The one thing is that, and I witnessed this when I was there at Argentina, Egypt, and Atlanta, watching that comeback, and we've seen this time and time again. The workload the other 10 players have to pick up, or the other 9 outfield players have to pick up, to allow Messi to size up the game and figure out where the best place is for him to be successful. Again, he was having no success down the middle for the first 70 minutes, as Egypt had a tremendous game plan of being able to limit him and really just agitate him. And it wasn't until the substitutions were made where Lionel Messi moved out wider to the right side, where he found the space to operate and completely change the game. I think, again, but people don't see the other, when Messi's making that run and, Egypt stops them on that counter and they have possession, people don't see Lautaro Martinez going to fill in a Messi spot and everyone else filling in, and Messi walking back and aligning defensively. Like there's a lot of adjustments that all the other players have had to make and continue to make, and I think they are willing to make to make sure that Messi goes out the right way in his final World Cup. And it's very admirable and it's very noble, and it's actually beautiful and unselfish to see that level of connection. But how long can you do that, especially when Messi has been the engine for this? And I think their second leading goal scorer is Lisandro Martinez. It's a very imbalanced side, and at what is there's going to be a game where Messi can't come and deliver, and who's going to be able to step up? Is it going to be Enzo Fernandez? Is it going to be Alexis McAllister? Is it going to be Julian Alvarez? Is it going to be Lautaro Martinez? And again, these are some things that we haven't seen more or less as frequently or as often that I expected going into this tournament.
What I would say, though, is the players that you've just listed off there are all really good players. And so this idea that beyond Messi, Argentina don't have enough, I don't really subscribe to that. I think you're right in saying that the team are having to adjust for Messi. They're having to pick up extra work for Lionel Messi. There's no question about that. But I think when game after game after game, the guy that you are tasked with facilitating goes out and does the business, I think as a player you can then believe in that and you can buy into it. Unlike Portugal, whereby you're trying to facilitate Cristiano Ronaldo and he's giving you nothing. He's giving you nothing. Like, I know he had some moments in this World Cup, but
the whole team didn't give him nothing. Bruno Fernandes gave him nothing. Vitinha gave him nothing.
That's fair.
The wingers gave him nothing. Like the whole team. I mean, again, everyone's going to single out Cristiano Ronaldo for not giving nothing, but you could say that about the entire team.
But you can't.
The Premier League Player of the Season gave them absolutely nothing.
But you can't ignore Cristiano Ronaldo's part. Because if you're sitting there saying that,
I'm not ignoring it. I think a lot of other people are ignoring the other parts that other people did not participate in playing. I think absolutely Cristiano Ronaldo deserves the criticism he gets, but to single him out when, again, Vitinha and has been on this PSG side that has won back-to-back Champions League winners, and people are describing him as the best player in the world. Bruno Fernandes coming off of a Player of the Season campaign in the Premier League and setting the record for assists. We didn't see any of that performances from those two guys from a midfield that we thought was going to be the best midfield in this tournament, or at least I thought. And I think the blame goes around in terms of the disappointment with Portugal. I don't think it's completely singled out Cristiano Ronaldo.
That's fine, but Ronaldo's only comparison comparable to Messi in that, you know, if you're talking about Ronaldo versus someone on another national team, is comparable in that both national teams are playing a player that is probably age-wise and physically not in tip-top condition anymore. Both national teams are playing a game that is based on extracting the qualities of those two players, regardless of their age. Argentina are doing it. It's working. Portugal were doing it. It wasn't working. And I would push back and say some of the reasons that those other Portuguese players are not delivering is because Cristiano Ronaldo was a hindrance to them. He was a massive hindrance to them. He was, you know, in dead positions so much of the time. We saw Lionel Messi the other day against Egypt not have any joy in the central areas. So late on in the game, he goes out and plays on the right because he's got the intelligence. And he's not stubborn enough to go, well, no, I'm here and they need to find me. I'm going to go and make something happen. I'm going to go and change our fortunes. I'm going to go and change the pattern of this game. And I think that's the fundamental difference. We are running out of time, Master, but I do want to quickly put these comments to you because Jorge Jesus has been named as the Portugal manager. And while we're on the subject of Ronaldo, he has called Ronaldo a symbol of Portuguese football. But when questioned about his selection going forward, he said, as long as he's playing and is in a condition to be selected, I will pick him within certain limits and under the conditions that I consider best for the national team. He's already shown more cojones than Roberto Martinez has with that statement in itself. So the new coach coming in, I don't think is going to have Cristiano Ronaldo going forward, which kind of makes the point for us, doesn't it?
I mean, we'll see. I mean, he just also did just coach Cristiano Ronaldo. So I think there's a lot to be said in terms of how that unfolds. I expect Cristiano Ronaldo probably to still be with Portugal for the upcoming Euros. Whether he can last and make it to the World Cup, I don't know. He said it's his last World Cup. We'll see if that's the case. But I'll see it when I believe it. I mean, when I see that, then I'll actually believe it. Until then, it's introductory press conference. He's trying to win the people over, and if he did that, then by all means, he did that.
He's trying to win the people over because he knows that's what the people think. It's not what the Portuguese FA think, but
that's what you think. That's what the Messi fans think. I don't know if that's exactly what Portugal's a completely different subject and conversation, which we can get into another show. But don't let your Messi biasness to take over the show at the end here.
That's what the sane people think. Anyway, we've run out of time. That's all from us today on the S Word. Thank you so much for watching. It's been a lot of fun, Master. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk football with you again. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with plenty more. Don't forget to follow us on all our socials. You've been watching The S Word, sponsored by Kalshi.
The daily deep dive into the world of football. The S Word from talkSPORT.